phrase, bless your heart, in 10 years of living here. And I read that this morning and I said, bless your heart, Steven Stamkos. This ain't the Midwest. Come on.
What I can only assume he meant, I'm in agreement with you. This is not the Midwest, okay? It's just not. But I would agree with you. But what if he thought because he lived in the Midwest when he came here, it was sort of familiar to him. It was like Midwest living, but not in the Midwest.
Well, he'd been living in Central Florida for a decade and a half. So maybe it is technically more west than Tampa, Nashville is.
But it's still not Midwest.
It's not the Midwest.
Yes. It's really
I'm just teasing. It's really not a big deal. But I read that this morning and I said, oh, Steven, bless your heart, my friend. That's the first time I think I ever wanted to say, bless your heart. And I've been living here.
Words.
I've been living here for nearly a decade at this point.
But we still love you.
Yes. But I digress. So I was listening to a really interesting interview that Brian Callahan did recently with Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports. The interview, if I'm not mistaken, was 90 minutes long. I haven't had the opportunity to get all the way through it, but it is a really interesting interview. I thought Easton Freeze asked some really good questions to Brian Callahan. I thought Brian Callahan was insightful. And of course, the conversation turned to quarterbacks. And Easton asked Brian Callahan a question about the most important traits for a successful quarterback in the NFL. And when we think of that, Derek, we often think about the physical traits, arm strength and mobility. Then there's a mental aspect of it too, your ability to thrive under pressure. And this was Brian Callahan's response when asked by Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports about the most important attributes a quarterback can have to be successful in the NFL.
Well, I think you got to find, I think you're looking more for particular traits, and one of the biggest ones that I see right now, and the ones that good quarterbacks I've been around is, it's going to sound a little bit strange, but what's their nervous system like? What do they look like when things break down? How do they operate when the pocket is muddy? How do they operate under critical duress and critical pressure? Those are the things that I look at. And how does their brain essentially respond? How does their body respond to those stressors? I think a really good example of what, incredible poise and calmness looks like is just you watch Jaden Daniels play.
First name that came to my mind when you said
the moment's never too big for him. Pressure never rattles him. He's efficient in his movement. He's efficient in his delivery. That's kind of what I mean by that. And look, Jaden is turning out to be what might be an incredibly rare prospect that, I would say probably, look, he was taken second overall. So like nobody missed on him. You know what I mean?
Right.
They knew he was a good player, but I'm just saying he was, I think he's exceeded whatever expectations a lot of people maybe had of him. And it's been kind of cool to watch as a fan of quarterback play. But his poise is incredible. And that's what you have to have. And then you watch.
So that was Brian Callahan on A to Z Sports with Easton Freeze talking about the most important attributes a quarterback can have. And he mentioned having a strong nervous system. And when I heard that, Derek, my mind immediately went to Will Levis, who I think we would both agree might not have a strong nervous system. It reminded me of, I'm sure we've all experienced this when you're dating, whether you were dating or are currently dating, you meet someone, it doesn't work out, and you immediately want to, the next time you meet someone, you want to find someone who's the opposite, right? So my ex was a bit cold, so I want my next relationship to be with someone who's super schmoopy and affectionate, because that's what I want. And when I heard Brian Callahan say that, I was like, well, he was just coaching a quarterback who I think most people would agree may not have a strong nervous system, considering all of the decisions that Will Levis made when he was under pressure. But I just thought that was interesting because, look, Brian Callahan enters this season, if his seat isn't hot,
Mhm.
it's at least lukewarm.
Yeah.
Because there's a new regime in place, new front office. They were the worst team in the NFL. Brian Callahan was hired to refine Will Levis. It didn't happen. It's possible that Will Levis was beyond refinement, but Brian Callahan's responsibility was to get the best out of Will Levis. It didn't happen. So that reflects poorly on Brian Callahan. But he is going to be this team's coach at the start of the season. And whatever decision the Titans make at quarterback, whether it's drafting someone or trading for someone or signing someone free agency, it's going to be up to Brian Callahan to get the best out of that quarterback. So I thought that was an interesting response. What did you think of Callahan's response there?
I mean, I think that's what ultimately, because this game moves so fast, things are so complex now. I think every evaluator has that on their list in regards to, having a calm nervous system. It's almost like, why do you think it takes so many hours to be a fighter pilot? And why they send you through these stressors? Because they got to know, they got to find out if the stuff hit the fan, can you still navigate our mission and do what we need to do? Because if you can't, I might as well just have you running computers right now. Because when we're in battle, I need everybody. I need to know that everybody can navigate through a very difficult system and with the goal in mind of winning. And that's what Will Levis seemed not to have. That's what separates it, and it go further than just the quarterback. That's what separates good players from great players, or okay players from good players, is the ability. Everybody that just about plays in the NFL, they have some type of a skill set. They had the ability. They were good enough that someone thought that they should be on their team. Okay, regardless if they're a starter or not, they could be the last man on the roster. But a coach thought there was something in him that allowed him to be on his team. But what separates those guys from the guys that ultimately excel is, let me put you on 4th and 1, and we got to throw that slant because they got 9 men in the box. Or 4th and 3, they got 9 men in the box. I'm running you on a slant one-on-one. We can't run the football. I got to trust that you are steady enough and calm enough that you're going to achieve the mission, which is to run that slant and get a first down, catch the ball, especially if it's a perfectly thrown ball. And then quarterback, I expect you to operate under that same premise. If you can't operate under that premise, you can't be my quarterback because every game isn't going to be a 41-10 blowout. Every game isn't going to be, rain coming down so we can't throw the football and we got to hand it off. Every game is not going to be like that. There's going to be a point in games where you have to win it. Why do you think the Kansas City Chiefs are so good? It isn't because of Patrick Mahomes is just better than everyone physically. No, it's because he knows how to operate under those crucial situations. And that's what Brian Callahan talks about, that nervous system. When you see what we're going through, are you tensing up? Are you short-arming throws? Are you looking for the first, piece of grass to get down and take the sack? Or are you standing in the pocket, delivering the ball the way it needs to be? Are you making the plays at the end of the game that we need you to make? And that is what he's talking about. And until he gets that, he believes the Titans will just continue to be, or any team will just continue to be like that mucky middle, because you don't have that one player under those type of situations that can perform.
So Brian Callahan and the Titans Brain Trust is at the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And as a follow-up to that question and answer from Easton Freeze, Brian Callahan was asked about how the Titans can go about testing these draft-eligible quarterbacks to see if they have that strong nervous system. This is what Brian Callahan said at the Senior Bowl.
There's ways you can do your best. It's if there was a clear cut way, we'd probably have a lot more hits on quarterbacks than not. It is challenging. There's no perfect science to it. You do your best given what you know about the person and the player and their intelligence and then their makeup. That's why you got to really dig hard on what these guys, their personalities and the people that are around them, and then you got to test them as best you can. You try to put them under some duress. It's manufactured, obviously, but you just try to see how they respond to some things. But it's not a perfect science.
That was Brian Callahan at the Senior Bowl. Now, Derek, I've seen clips. I watched Hard Knocks this past offseason with the Giants, and they had multiple quarterbacks in, if I recall correctly, and they had Brian Dable, the Giants coach, and other people sitting in a room, and they were going over plays, and the quarterbacks were diagramming them on a whiteboard. So I guess that's one way that the Titans can test Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. But what are really the methods that they can use? I mean, look, they can watch the film, and that's an important part.
I think one of the key components is, watching games. Now, at times it's hard to even evaluate that, because how do you evaluate an Alabama team that had been so dominant that they just basically had one tough game a year, and they had so many 5-stars on the field that the quarterback just throw it to somebody. It's not like you got to figure it out. Just throw it to somebody away you go. So, it's outside of looking at film. I think it's hard, but look at what Jaden Daniels is doing. And I think some quarterbacks are starting to do this now. Not only because I think this is what Brian Callahan talked about early on with Will Levis. He was like, listen, with Will Levis, we're able to take from the classroom to the practice field. That's great. We're able to take from the classroom to the practice room. But we're trying to figure out, how do we take it from the practice field to the game field? That's the disconnect, So when you see quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels that is doing that sort of is dabbling in virtual reality now with these glasses, and I think a lot of other quarterback coaches are doing it. That seems to give you a sense of real-time action, because if I throw something on the board at you, you may be able to get it like that, because you may be one of those type of dudes that it's easier to see it on the board, that I can pick it up on the board. But if I get out on the field and you start throwing this stuff at me, that's when it gets confusing, because now everything is basically eye level. On the board, it's not necessarily eye level in a sense, but when you're on the field, everything is what we call it. Linear. Yes, everything is linear. So it's harder to read from that aspect. So using the virtual reality that Jaden Daniels used, that's one way to sort of, get a sense on how a quarterback will perform under stress. But outside that, man, Brian Callahan is right. It's one of those things that it's like it's hard to sort of know if the guy has it or not, because it's not one set test. Like the 40, like if I want to find out how fast somebody is, we can go to the 40-yard dash. That's something concrete, whether we believe in a 40-yard dash or not, but that's something we can go to and say, bam, that's his time. That's how fast he is. But there's nothing really to test what Brian Callahan is talking about in regards to evaluating quarterbacks.
Speaking of Will Levis, Brian Callahan said yesterday at the Senior Bowl that Levis will travel to California this offseason to work with private quarterbacks coach Jordan Palmer, who I believe is the brother of Carson Palmer, and a former Titans quarterback, I believe, Jordan Palmer.
He played in NFL for a quick bit.
So Palmer is, as I said, a private quarterbacks coach, and Callahan said that the things that he wants Levis to work on are footwork and pocket movement and things of that nature. And it's funny because I saw that and I thought to myself, well, like, how much work should they put into Will Levis? Like, he's not going to be the starting quarterback for this team. But then you remember that he's still under contract. I think there's probably a better chance than not that he is on this roster next season, obviously in a much different role. But when that hit me when I read that he was going to work with Jordan Palmer, which is great for him. I mean, he needs all the help he can get.
Mhm.
But it also kind of reminded me, yeah, I guess Will Levis is going to be on the Titans next season, probably.
Yeah, there's no reason why the Titans should go away from him. Listen, he was your second round pick. You still got him under contract for the next, I think, 2 years on the cheap. If he develops, he can develop into your backup quarterback, if anything else. And if, best case scenario, he turns out to be what you're looking for, that can happen also. But there was never a thought in my mind that Will Levis wouldn't be on this roster this upcoming season. Now, if they get something for him via a draft pick, then maybe they look to trade him. But I don't even think that would be, the right thing to do. But my thing is with Will Levis is, why didn't you go out to Palmer last year? Because you're making it seem like this is the first time you're going out there. There's only 32 of these jobs. And you are one of the fortunate guys to be able to get one of 32 jobs. Why haven't you been going to the experts, to make yourself better? That's the product. Now all of a sudden you're going, which is great. But shouldn't you have been going to this guy last year or the year before that? This is how these good quarterbacks that become great quarterbacks, they always are a step ahead. They don't wait for coaches to point out, well, you need to get better at this. No, they understand it. They know themselves, I need to get better before the coach even says anything. And I just wonder why Will Levis, he may have been, I don't know. But
yeah,
this is the
I don't
first
know
time.
I don't know what he did in terms of his offseason work.
But this is the first time they've made sort of a big deal, and it wasn't a big deal. But this is the first time that they brought something like that up.
Yeah, Will Levis has he's been cast aside by a lot of Titans fans and by perhaps the organization as well, because barring something unforeseen, Will Levis isn't going to be playing any meaningful games for the Titans anymore. If he's on the roster and the quarterback that starts games, whoever that will be, gets hurt, Will Levis could get back in there. But he is still part of this team, whether you like it or not, for now. Like the one thing you mentioned, Derek, this quarter, and we're going to talk more about this later in the show. This quarterback group, if you want to include the quarterbacks that are eligible to be drafted, the quarterbacks who will be on the free agent market, and the quarterbacks who could end up on the free agent market or be traded. So we're talking Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, Sam Darnold, maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. It's a shallow pool of quarterbacks that teams can choose from. And I wonder if there is a team out there who might strike out on their first option, on their second option. They may even strike out on their third option and say, hey, we can fix Will Levis, and I'll give you a 5th round pick to make it happen. In that case, the Titans should absolutely do that. But I do think the relative lack of options for quarterbacks available this offseason in whatever form, like I said, draft, free agency, trade, there's not a lot of good ones out there. We talked about this yesterday with Sam Darnold. After Sam Darnold, in terms of free agent quarterbacks, there's a significant drop-off in quality. I do wonder if the Titans could take advantage of that by trading Will Levis to a quarterback-needy team that thinks they can fix him.
I don't know, but I'm going to give you a prediction after the break.
Okay.
Because I've said this about a quarterback before.
Well, why don't you give me the prediction now? Because Chris Mason is going to join us to talk Predators in the next segment. So why don't you give me that prediction now, and we can revisit it later.
I predict that Will Levis, as I did with Alex Smith when they brought on Patrick Mahomes, I said Alex Smith is about to have the best season he's had in his career. And he did, and he was able to parlay it to Washington in a big contract. I predict that Will Levis, because now he will have competition, I believe you will see the best version of Will Levis this offseason, going into camp, in preseason, and headed into the season. You're going to see why they drafted him. Now, will that ultimately means he gets the job and keep it? I don't know. But you will start to see because of the competition. And I think he thrives off competition. He didn't have no competition last year. That was his job. He knew it. But I think he's the type of guy that thrives off of competition. The competition will be there this year. Well, I hope it's there this year. And I think he will raise the level of his game to where he needs to. Now, ultimately, will that cause him or create him or allow him to be the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season? I don't know. But we are going to see a different version of Will Levis come this upcoming season.
615-737-1025. We've got plenty of quarterback talk to get into today. We are live from Bridgestone Arena. Predators Canucks tonight at 8. Puck drop at 8. Pregame at 7. Right here on 102.5, 106.3. The Game. Coming up next, Chris Mason, Predators television analyst, will join us. We'll discuss the Predators. We'll get into UC Saros, who we discussed at length yesterday. We'll do that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3. The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com by Chris Mason, Predators television analyst. Chris, I just want to let you know that although you were not named to the first or second quarter-century Predators teams by the NHL, you will always be the number one goalie in our hearts.
Wow, that just day made. Thank you very much. Even though I know it's probably not 100% true, I appreciate it.
Of course it is. Of course it is. By the way, the NHL, for those who don't know,
We love you, Chris.
they've been doing
See?
this exercise for the past month. They've been releasing each franchise's quarter-century first and second teams, and the players for each team were voted on by people around the team. By the way, Chris Mason, I just want to let you know that Willie Donick was a voter on this exercise. So if you want to take it up with him, go right ahead, my friend.
Turn his mic off during the game one day.
Yeah. Well, I voted for the same goalie, so I think we're good. So,
Fair
I'm
enough. Fair
realistic,
enough.
too. I'm realistic. Too.
By the way, for those listening, the Predators' first team, quarter-century team, 3 forwards, 2 defensemen, 1 goalie. Mike Fisher, Philip Forsberg, Paul Kariya, Roman Josi, Shea Weber, and Pat Garine. No surprise there. The second team, Ryan Johansson, David Legwand, Steve Sullivan, Matthias Ekholm, Kimmo Timonen, and UC Saros. So no qualms with any of those picks, but Chris Mason's still number one in my heart. So speaking of goalies, Chris, we talked yesterday about UC Saros. I know you and Willie have talked about it on the broadcast as well. Over the past couple of months, he has not been at his best. We went over some of the numbers yesterday. They're unflattering over the past 2 months. Certainly not playing up to his standard. It's leading a lot of Predators fans to get a little concerned about UC Saros's trajectory, keeping in mind that his new contract hasn't even started yet. It starts next season. But as our resident goalie, as you have analyzed UC Saros's play over the past 2 months versus his start of the season, what are you seeing or not seeing from Saros that has gotten him to this point?
Yeah, no, I would say he's obviously a little bit in one right now. I think that you can see, and you can now. I think everybody knows when you watch UC Saros if you're able to see if he's got his A game or if he's a bit below. And obviously right now he's not at his best. But I'd always look at around the league. Obviously save percentages down around the league, and then guys that would be in the same vicinity as him. If you go, you can't just go wins, loss records. Because if you look at a guy like, Sergei Bobrovsky in Florida, Stanley Cup winner, he's had points in his career where everybody thought he was, done and maybe moved on. And all of a sudden he gets to the final, wins a Stanley Cup. Igor Shesterkin's, largely considered a top goaltender and one of the best in the game. He's had a couple really rough stretches this year with the Rangers. And so I just think to put it into that context is important because it happens to every goalie, in different circumstances. And I think a lot of times, if you're on a team, you're a product of your environment to a large extent. So if you're, on a team that's maybe not great defensively, your bad games are going to be worse. You're just exposed to more quality. Like even if you grade the grade A chances, even the quality within a grade A chance is a little bit different from team to team. And I think it's a combination of him not being dialed in right now, and he's having a tough team. And I don't think the team's defending well in front of him as well. So I think it's kind of a combination where he's not at the top of his game. And, I don't think the team is playing great defensively. They're starting to score a lot of goals, aside from last game, which is nice. But I think, the defensive side of things has slipped a little bit for this team as well. And I think in, combination, I don't think it's a good recipe for success. So this will be a big game for him. Obviously, I think, maybe playing against Lankinen. He's had a couple of good games against Vancouver. It'll be interesting to see if he can get back on track because he hasn't been really prone to long stretches of poor play. So it'll be, if it continues, then it's something, maybe you're concerned about this season, but it's nothing that I'm really concerned about long-term.
So it appears, Chris, that Thatcher Demko will start for the Canucks tonight.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
Thatcher Demko in net for the Predators, according to Dan Murphy of Sportsnet. I had this idea yesterday, and I bounced it off of Willie and Derek, and I want to get your opinion on it as well. Considering where the Predators are in the standings. It's going to take a miracle for them to make the postseason. I think we can all agree on that. And I know that the Predators want to play their best hockey and get that mojo flowing and hope that it carries into next season. They can get off to the start everybody expected them to get off to this season, and this season, hopefully for them, is only a blip on the radar. But I think that because this season, from a playoff chase standpoint, is effectively lost, that the Predators should limit the number of starts that UC Saros makes over the remainder of the season. I'm not talking Justus Annunen becoming the starting goaltender or even a pure 50-50 split, but I think there should be numerous starts that would normally go to UC Saros that should go to Justus Annunen, because I think that they shouldn't run UC Saros into the ground for the rest of the season. They're not going to catch up in the playoff race. So I think for the betterment of Saros and the team, that they should limit his playing time as much as they can the remainder of the season. What do you think of that idea?
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think that's something that, has probably been talked about. I think you can couple that with the way that Annunen's played since joining the Predators. I think he's been great, but I think long-term, there's no reason to do it, right? You don't want to run your goaltender. Him and Connor Hellebuck have played by far more than any other goaltenders in the league over the last 5 years. I think when you're always looking for opportunities to get guys rest, and I know in the second half of the season when you're fighting to get in playoffs, every game's the biggest game. It's hard not to, put your best player in the net every single night, other than the games that you have to on a back-to-back or something like that. So I think it's probably a really good opportunity to take some of those games away and, just not put those miles unnecessarily, on UC Saros if you're, concerned about his workload over the last 5 years. And I think that's something that I'm sure is being talked about and considered, and I think they should.
Now, see, Mace, there was a lot made of, the spending that the Preds did in the offseason, sort of big game hunting. They spent over $108 million on three scores. And obviously we know the season isn't what they expected. Now, if they continue to go down the road that they're going down, which means they're not going to play making the playoffs, how do you think the team at the end of the year, when they start to sort of sit back and sort of look at everything, if you're on this team, how would you view the season this year?
Well, I think everybody on the team, it shows you, first of all, I'd just like to preface this. If this was an all-time Titans team, you're first ballot for me for wide receiver at
Thanks
the
a
Titans.
lot.
That's neither here nor there. I think that's pretty standard. But I think they kind of want a do-over. The start of the season was so bad. We all probably recognize there's no way, that could ever happen again, and they were that bad. But the fact of the matter was, and that's what makes the games like Anaheim. You have to win every game, especially as you're playing a team that's, around where you are in the standings. And, normally in a normal season, you lose that game to Anaheim. Well, it's a bad game and you can recover from that. But they're at a point right now where, the start was so bad. They're going to need a miracle to get back in this. And as Adam just said, it's very unlikely it's going to have to take a minor miracle for them to get back. So I think in context there, coming up to the deadline, Barry Trotz is going to have to look at, okay, well, we've got some guys that are of some value to some teams that are going to be making a run, as there always is. What guys do you find that are part of your plan moving forward, and what can be used to gain assets? And I know Barry's been on the show a lot and talked about kind of his mindset in both different scenarios, and wanting to, if he's going to trade away some of these players that have interest, and some have expiring contracts and some do not, that it's important to get pieces back that are going to be impact players, proven players, along with, draft capital and potential prospects and things. So he's going to have a lot of options. I think at the deadline, it's going to be a lot of calls to the Nashville Predators on some of the rosters. And one of the names that was floating out there that was a little bit of surprise was Ryan O'Reilly. We can all see why somebody would want to add a player of his caliber, but Barry Trotz has also said, I'm going to treat it like he's got a no trade clause. I made a promise to him when he first came in, and all these different types of things. So I think they're going to have a lot of interest, but it's something that has to be done delicately, I think, in every situation, and to move forward with the plan of, okay, are we going to rebuild? Are we going to find players that can come in that might be a bit younger, that can make an impact? Are we going to take on a contract of a position we need to get stronger at, center, for example? So it's these next little month or so is going to be very, very interesting and really telling, I think, to what direction Trotz will go in.
Now, if he chooses to, say if he gets a deal, because obviously Trotz, and he said it before, hey, listen, I'm going to be fair to everybody, but I have to do what's best for the organization. And he stayed true to it. Now, if he does get a deal that would good enough in his eyes and in the organization's eyes that, okay, now we move on from O'Reilly, that may start to signal a shift in, whether it's a rebuild or not. But you look at it, and is that a time, if you do make a move like that, is that an opportunity and a time to start playing a lot more of these younger guys? Because if you look at it, the Preds have the oldest, forward unit in the National Hockey League. So if you can start letting some of these younger guys get the experience that they need, maybe it'll help you out in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's something they'll definitely look at doing. I think they've had a lot of success this year. Svechkov coming up and Zach LaRue. Both of these guys look like they can play. Had they not done that earlier in the season, injuries and whatnot, you might still be in a position where you don't know if those guys can play, and they're just getting their opportunities. So I think they've added a lot, and I think you've got a guy like Kemmel in the minors who I think everybody's excited to maybe take a look at. I think if that's the direction the team goes, we'll be seeing some more of those guys come up and get opportunities. And I think when you're in a situation like that, you should. I mean, you're playing to look at give these guys experience, be around the team, see what it takes at this level, day in, day out, and to see if they can, get the job done at the National Hockey League level. And, I think that'll benefit the team going into next season because you'll have more of an idea. Because it's one thing to watch a kid succeed in the American Hockey League, and it's different to see how they react to the game up here because it's a different animal. And as we've seen, some can develop and some can handle it, and some can't. Although they've had success in the American League, so I think for sure, if they go that direction, we're going to see some of the youth in the organization. I think it's a good thing.
Chris Mason, Predators television analyst, joining us here on D-Mace, Vingan, and Donna. Chris, great stuff. As always, my friend, enjoy the game tonight.
Okay, thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Chris Mason joining us on the program, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Derek just alluded to something that I want to discuss. Willie Donick will join us on the other side as well. We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Predators and Canucks tonight at 8. Again, 8 o'clock. I swear to God, if one of you shows up early and at 7 o'clock says,
Duval.
Where's the game?
Why didn't you guys tell me?
where's the game?
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Don't say I didn't warn you. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So we just talked to Chris Mason, but there was another story that we wanted to discuss that was written in The Athletic a couple of days ago by Harman Dial, who normally, coincidentally, covers the Vancouver Canucks, but also does some national work. And he talked to Barry Trotz at length for this story. I highly recommend it. But there was one part of this story that really stood out to me. And in the story, Dial writes, quote, the Predators' age and lack of speed up front may also need to be addressed. Nashville's 6th most used forwards at 5-on-5 this season are all 30 or older. Collectively, it's the oldest group of core forwards in the NHL. So the 6 forwards Dial uses: Forsberg, Marchessault, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Nyquist, and Sissons. So collectively, they have an average age of 32.8, which means that is the oldest top 6 forwards by 5-on-5 ice time group in the NHL. Now, I remember in the offseason, after they spent all of that money, I did a show with Nick Keyser filling in for Chase and Big Joe, and I told Keyser, and I think Frazier may have been there as well, I told Keyser that my prediction for this team, my bare minimum, was they had to win at least 2 playoff rounds. They had to make it to at least the Western Conference Final. And we weren't all together yet. And I remember listening to your show later in the week, and you guys had to be like, did Adam say that he need to win 2 playoff rounds this upcoming season? And I said, yes, I did say that because this team is old. That is why I thought they needed to strike as soon as possible. And this is a lost season. Steven Stamkos is going to be older. Marchessault is going to be older. Yossi, older. Forsberg, older. They're all going to be older. So you have to strike while the iron is hot. And the challenge, Willie, that this organization is going to have, and Trotz addressed this in this story, is will there be enough time for the younger players, the upcoming prospects and such, to join the NHL and combine with these older veterans while those older veterans are still highly capable and get this team to where they need to go? It's a very difficult needle to thread. And that is going to tell us a lot about the next few years of this Predators franchise.
And few years could be the next 2 years or the next 5 years. There's different ways to look at it. I thought it was a great article to spell out, and Barry Trotz was right in it.
Mhm.
Is Barry Trotz not quoted in there? Oh, yes, he is. He was right in the conversation. He agreed with a lot of the article, gave his positioning on it, and that it is disappointing that they are where they are right now. And like C-Mace just said, they'd won 5 in a row. You're feeling really good, and then you lose one, and the reality check comes back in. Oh, you're still X points out, and you feel like you have to win every game to make this season something special, and they're so deep in the hole right now. So they are where they are. Barry Trotz knows that. He talks about it with Jared every week. The goal is to bounce back, and I do think that does lay out, Adam, what the goal will be. They have somewhere in the top 10 best farm systems in the NHL, according to The Athletic. They're counting down 1 per team. They've gotten through number 11, and they have not announced Nashville yet. So it does give you some hope. I would have a big worry level if they had gutted the farm system to come up with this team.
If they had traded for Steven Stamkos and given up prospects in order to get him versus
and really,
just signing him to a contract.
And over the last few years, right?
Mhm.
That give David Poile credit, because on his way out, he easily could have just scrapped everything, traded all the future assets, and said, I'm not a part of this future. I got to worry about my own hide here. I want to go out with the best chance I have. He didn't do that. He went the other way and acquired a bunch of assets to leave the cupboard full. They still have 3 first-round picks that they haven't even used yet in the upcoming draft. 3 first-rounders. So those players, and this is the point that Dial makes, those players aren't going to help Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Roman Josi, right? Those guys right now are 17 years old. They're in high school somewhere. They're at lunch at the cafeteria getting the rectangular pizza, right? And the side order of fries. And can I get double fries? Can I get double fries? You know, you got to have a good relationship with the lunch people.
Yes.
Can I get a little extra?
The little
Can I get double?
Debbie's brownies
Right.
with the
Yeah.
rainbow sprinkles. Those were my favorite.
That's where all three of those first round picks are.
Exactly. Right now.
They're not anywhere close to the NHL. Steven Stamkos has taken his kids to kindergarten. There's a good interview with him in The Athletic about where he is. So that intersection is not going to happen. I think the question is, do guys like Svechkov, who really in certain games now looks eye-popping good. I don't know about superstar good. Barry Trotz says, can he be a good number 2 center? William Edstrom, who is another year or two away, he's only 19. Can he be a part of a team going forward? There's the enigma of Luke Evangelista, who's injured right now. What does the rest of his season look like? Zach LaRue. These are the guys that I think, Joachim Kemmel, the guys in Milwaukee right now, those are the guys that have to give the older guys a boost for this to work. And you have to hope that Josi, Forsberg, Stamkos, Marchessault, those guys age well. And that's not a given, right? That's not a given.
That's
O'Reilly is another one.
That's going to be the tough part is not necessarily, yes, the age is there, but we understand with, you know, technology and how these guys train, you know, today's 30-year-old or 31-year-old isn't like our 30, 31-year-old or our parents' 30, 31-year-old. So yes, the age factor is there, but more importantly, it's not just that. It's because it's a physical sport, and as you start to age, you may, you know, taking one too many hits may wear on you a little bit quicker now. And if you don't have that youth that is able to, say if you have to miss a game or two, if you don't have that youth that can come in and sort of fill in the spot somewhere else while somebody get elevated, then your team starts to, I think your team starts to decline a lot quicker than what it should be. That's why, you know, having the oldest, you know, forwards in the National Hockey League isn't a good thing. You know, they need to find that youth, and they need that youth to help them as quickly as possible.
Adam, this is a quote that I thought jumped out at me with Barry Trotz, because it looked like he had a choice when he came in. Do I break it all the way down, or do I, as he uses the term, take some swings? And what he's been very clear about what he decided to do. So as a fan, I can see a frustrated fan saying, man, here we are in the middle, spent all this money. These guys are only going to get older. I would put that back out there. This is what I think Barry Trotz said to defend himself. I'm not going to apologize for taking some swings. We had a good year last year. I tried to add to that. It hasn't worked. I'm hoping it'll bounce back. But in the meantime, I haven't gutted the farm system. I feel good about where the franchise is going in the long term. And it's like he was saying, what would you have me do? And he did reference this. He says, there are teams in this league that go through a rebuilding process, and it takes 10 to 12 years. That might sound like an exaggeration, but let's go through them. The Red Wings, are they going to make the playoffs this year? Maybe.
The Sabres.
Maybe. Well, the Sabres are extreme. They're in the category of their own. They're going on 2 decades, right?
They're like the Lions.
A decade and a half.
They've got a
Lions
lot
of
of lines.
hockey.
It's really frustrating for them, and they've got great fans. They've got a great hockey town.
The Blackhawks.
The Blackhawks have not really been relevant since 2017 when they got swept by the Predators. They still are a long way from coming out of the darkness. Anaheim is picked in the top 10 for 6 consecutive years. Top 10 pick. They're not close right now to winning. San Jose Sharks, one of the pillars of consistency when the Predators came into the league. Playoffs every year for a long, long time. They've picked in the top 10 now for 6 consecutive years. They're going to pick in the top 10 again this year. And you can say, hey, Willie, break it down, rebuild, let's tank, let's get the high picks. Okay, are you willing to take 6 to 7 or 8 years to do that? Barry Trotz said, no, I want to try to win in the meantime. But at the same time, he's accumulating assets. He is not trading and gutting the farm system. So that to me is the challenge. But at the same time, it's an ominous article because if you look at the next couple years, there are big challenges. I would say there's big challenges for every team, but the challenge for the Predators is to intersect the young players coming up. And what are you going to do with these older guys who are under contract for 3 or 4 more years? Can they continue to give you value during that time? It is not going to be easy.
615-737-1025. Predators, Canucks tonight again at 8. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 1025, 1063. The game coming up next, Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow will join us. We'll get into the NFL, the Titans, the draft, all of it with Hutton coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063. The game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you at Bridgestone Arena. Joining us, Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. And Hutton, I was just reading this story on Sportico about the Super Bowl and ratings and things of that nature. According to Sportico, 115.1 million people tuned into the previous Kansas City versus Philadelphia Super Bowl in 2023. 115.1 tuned into that game. Does this game outdo that game in terms of viewership?
Yes, I think it does. I think that there's Kansas City fatigue, but there's the Super Bowl. You have the three-peat versus, and we can get into a long discussion about this. Have the Commanders won this game, had the Lions won, I'd be all about this dynasty ending, wrapping up, no three-peat. There's something very unlikable about the Philadelphia Eagles to me.
Interesting.
And it's a lot of little things. It's not like one big thing.
Is
But
it
I'm
because
actually
they
wanting to
booed
see-
Santa? Is that
Yeah,
still a
it's
thing?
that they cussed me out, Willie, on the sideline when I was at the league.
Oh,
Yeah.
they didn't treat you very nice
The
in Philly.
Don't mistake.
No, I love
Don't
it.
mistake Philly fans for being, the nicest people in the world. Now. Come on, now.
It's the Philly fans and Baltimore fans were the only two fan bases that knew my name when I came out of the tunnel. The lady
You should wear that as a badge of
No,
honor, huh?
Exactly.
Wear that as a badge of honor.
You know it. In fact, I think they asked the lady my name in the tunnel, and then they got after me. Is what happened.
Do you remember
but,
something particularly mean that was said to you, Hutton, that still sticks with you to this day?
It was more about what was thrown at me.
Okay. Batteries
No
by chance?
batteries.
Okay.
No batteries. And as the great Doug Matthews would wish upon Tennessee fans, he longs for the days when Willie will know this. He longs for the days whenever urine is thrown at him at Florida games.
Nice.
He has said that before, which is hilarious. No, nothing terrible. More or less like empty, Coke cans or whatever, beer cans. But it was a drunk fest in the pregame, and it was phenomenal. It's everything I want it to be in Philadelphia, quite frankly. This is more about like Sirianni going after the fans earlier this season, or AJ like chirping back and forth with his good friend at quarterback. Like it's just off. Barkley's very likable. I'm rooting for that storyline. If the season ended today, and it doesn't, would Barkley be the MVP? That's a great debate based on where he is now versus where he was at the end of the season, where he's not going to win. He's not even being like mentioned there, which is ludicrous. But Kansas City, they always finish. It's annoying, but it's respect. I respect the hell out of it. And there's something about that dynamic I want to see one more time. And it has nothing to do with me like liking any individual on the Chiefs side of things. It's more or less like irritating factors for Philadelphia for me.
Well, who was it? It was Nate Burleson. We played the clip earlier this week. It was Nate Burleson after the
Yes.
game who said, "I understand if you all have Chiefs fatigue, but be grateful you're alive to witness history." And I was like, "All right,
Still,
step
it's
down
not
from that pulpit,
serious.
my friend."
It's not that serious.
Let me mention the ratings real quick. 58 million watched Buffalo try to go and take down Kansas City. The Swifties play a factor in this. They do. That's one consistent. If I'm watching at a bar and the Kansas City's on, random women will walk by and ask random people, "Have they shown Taylor yet?" Like it's crazy that they're still like glued to it just to see a flash of her in the booth wearing gloves.
I will speak to
like-
this from firsthand experience. My wife, who is not a sports fan in the slightest, I had the AFC Championship game on the other day, and she was asking me, "Hey, has Taylor been shown in the suite yet? What's Taylor wearing tonight?" Like that sort of thing. So it does play a big role. That will factor into the number of people who view into the game in a couple of weeks.
And then 44 million tuned in to watch Washington lose to Philadelphia, and that's a drop from where the AFC Championship was. But 44 million surpasses practically anything you can come up with that's a non-NFL event. Period. So I mean, it's the Super Bowl. People will tune in. I don't know how much the halftime show pulls in viewership this year compared to other ones with Kendrick Lamar. It'll pull, but maybe the ratings are down, maybe they're up. But yeah, I think more people will tune in this go around to watch this rematch than they did 2 years ago. Maybe
The one-
not as much as last year, though.
The one thing that's amazing to me about this, not just the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs are going for the three-peat, trying to become the first NFL team to win 3 consecutive Super Bowl championships. None of the previous repeat champions even made it to the Super Bowl. This is the first time a team that has a chance at the three-peat has actually made it to the Super Bowl, which adds a little bit more intrigue on my part. I know that a lot of airtime and a lot of pixels have been spilled about the Chiefs and the refs. Where do you stand on this national dilemma we seem to be having?
Well, I thought the calls that went against Houston were egregious, quite frankly. I don't know. It's not on the official. It's the setup. They are told if they are in doubt on roughing the passer, when in doubt, throw the flag. I don't know how you officiate a game like that. That's the only play in football where they are told if you are in doubt, throw it. So that's what they did. That's going back to the Texans game where Mahomes is a runner, and then all of a sudden, because he is attempting at the very beginning to slide, again he's a protected quarterback at that point. Last week, I didn't have a problem with the spot. I know there's a lot of controversy with the spot itself. They still had the football again. If I will say, if you're going to change a rule and try to get a chip put in the football or whatever it might be, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes combined to change an overtime rule together. So maybe we could see something there that what they're trying in like the USFL with spotting the football. Look, the whole referee controversy is something that's never going to end. It's the fact that Kansas City seems to always have it go their way. 17-0 in one possession games is their record now. Their last 17 games, 17-0. It's remarkable. You mentioned the three-peat. I mean, in going back to some of the teams that had the opportunity to do it, the Patriots didn't get back to the Super Bowl, and that's an era where you had Brady, but Brady had Manning. There is no other true rival for Mahomes in the playoffs. I mean, it's Allen, but it's not really Allen. He's 0 for 4. They're 0 for their last 8. Buffalo is on the road in the postseason. So while Manning had Brady and Brady had Manning, it's Mahomes, and then everyone else is kind of battling for that next spot. And it's intriguing because of the era we're in the passing era that's now more run than ever than we've seen the last several years. And it's still Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid lapping everyone. And if I may, something I'm going to mention later today on the show on Hot Mic, I think there were more than just Houston and Buffalo so far that could take down Kansas City this postseason. The teams that had an opportunity to hire a coach, I don't know why we didn't see more of Steve Spagnuolo mentioned for head coaching jobs. Because if you want to take out Kansas City and what they're doing, you take away Steve Spagnuolo from the last Super Bowl win last year and then what they've done this year defensively, that is a huge wound to what Kansas City accomplishes over the last year and a half.
And I think that brings up my question that I wanted to ask you, because listen, we know how great Patrick Mahomes is, but you just talked about Spagnuolo being the top defensive coordinator in the NFL right now, and what his defenses have been able to do, frankly, the last 2 years. Because without that defense, Kansas City isn't making it to the Super Bowl last year. They're not winning it. Their defense stepped up big, and this year, because of the close games, a lot of it was because of what the defense did and or the special teams. Now, Pat made plays when he needed to, but the defense always gave them an opportunity to win a game or put them in a position to seal a game. So that brings me to my question about the Titans, because everybody can't have a Patrick Mahomes. And even when you do have a Patrick Mahomes, sometimes even Patrick Mahomes can't win the game for you alone. He needs a defense or other players. So in regards to the Titans, say if they don't get that quarterback in this year's draft, do you think this regime is good enough to amass a good enough talent to still win with the subpar quarterback?
Are they going to draft Abdul Carter?
maybe at number one, maybe, but it's like, okay, say if they draft a quarterback, it's not working out. But do you
Okay.
believe that this unit can
Well-
then surround the quarterback with enough good players that even though we don't have that guy or he hasn't shown that he's going to be an elite quarterback, we can still win in the meantime?
Okay, that question comes down to who they already have, Mace.
Mhm.
Is Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat, are they going to be the interior version of what we see in Kansas City, for instance?
Mhm.
You know, they're going to be dominant. Is
I
Jeffrey
mean,
Simmons going to be
you can say they can be because they've
They can
shown
be.
it, this season.
Yeah, but like, are they going to amass more talent to put around if they don't have the quarterback solution? We know that to win at the highest level, they have to have a quarterback solution.
Yes.
But to be immensely better than where they were, which is at the bottom of the league, they have to have the guys that they have already obtained step up and be that version of that player that they envisioned. Like, and we've seen that early from Jeffrey Simmons, the gradual steps and progression of a career. And now we need to see him truly take over after getting paid. And that's paired next to Devondre Sweat, a second-round pick that, you know, can do a lot more for that defense. L'Jarius Sneed has to play and play well. You know, like he's got to be on the field. Lloyd Cushenberry has to be an every game starter and be the veteran leader of the offensive line. Those are things that they were saying last year, right after they signed these players, or last year when they were, you know, putting together their roster. Those things still have to come to fruition. And then you add pieces to that to supplement what you're doing in the draft. But they don't have enough draft picks right now to truly look at this and say, okay, without the quarterback, what do they do? Unless they break the bank and go sign a 3-year starter or 3-year contract and get a Sam Darnold type player, and he continues at the pace that he was on with a different coordinator and a different play caller. Like, those are a lot of ifs. So, you know, do they have the pieces now? No, we just saw the reaction and the response to the questions that we were asking last offseason. They need the quarterback. And, you know, unfortunately, it doesn't seem as though there are just surefire solutions that sit right in front of them as they hold the number one pick.
And that's why I asked the question, because everyone thinks, and I'm guilty at it at times, and I shouldn't be, but think that, oh, you got to get a Patrick Mahomes. You got to get a Lamar Jackson. It has to be a Jaden Daniels the first year or a CJ Stroud the first year in order to have any chance. When in actuality, there's only 3 or 4 of those guys in the league, maybe 5 that are elite quarterbacks. Now, there are some that could be on the cusp, but when those guys are on the cusp, usually the elite quarterbacks are starting to phase out. So it sort of balances itself out. But my thing is, everybody wants that quarterback, but realistically, we all know you ain't gonna find that quarterback. So how do you win in the meantime?
Well, to your point, Jalen Hurts is going to his second Super Bowl before Allen or Jackson has each won.
And Philly was able to surround him with good talent.
Yep, and they with the talent that meshed well, at least for so long. I mean, there's something up with Hurts and AJ Brown, right? Like, they go from working out during COVID to prior to the trade to, you know, whatever. But yeah, like you mesh with him. You also draft receiver, and now you go and you work in Saquon Barkley, and that's the X factor. But you also, like, it's also the staff. You know, like they added the right pieces to their coaching staff. Sirianni's not calling the plays. Those are things too that affect on the field performance in Philly, and that's after they had a success doing it a different way. So, you know, they had Fangio, a defensive coordinator. You know, the Kellen Moore, for instance. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's more than just players on the field, but it's players on the field. And their defense, too, to going back to where we started with this question, their defense also is able to rise to the occasion and make some big stops, big plays. And it's led by their scheme and their coordinator.
Jonathan Hutton is with us. So, Hut, I'll ask you the philosophical question that we are going to tackle some on the show today. You just mentioned it. With there not being a Peyton Manning or a Joe Burrow or a Cam Newton, an obvious first overall quarterback that anybody would take, where the Titans are, should they trade down and get more picks?
I'm all for that, Willie. Okay, I'm doing that. Now, what type of haul am I getting? Maybe I don't get the same type of haul that it took for San Francisco to go get Trey Lance, for instance. Maybe I don't get that type of deal. But I don't know if those quarterbacks are going to garner that. Now, if you're moving up, you're going to pay the price to get your franchise quarterback, no matter who you are. But here's the thought process, and I'm just thinking it through why they would go ahead and draft quarterback. And I'm not for that. If the guy's not the guy, you're not sold on him being the franchise, and you're everything, all chips are in on this player, you don't take him. But that would mean another team feels that way. Why did they hire Brian Callahan to begin with? It was the quarterback background. That's what, it was who he's been with more than what he's done. And the quarterback developer, right? Like, that has to play a factor in why he was brought in with Chad Brinker here, right? So I'm thinking, like, how much does that play a factor? If I'm looking, if I'm Borgonzi, I'm not trying to factor in my head coach currently. I'm trying to factor in where I want to be 3 years from now. And Brinker has said the same thing. So if you're factoring in the 3-year process, which, I mean, to be honest, guys, it's about the immediate future too. Just look in the rearview mirror and see what's happened to other guys who had a process. You have to think picks. You build through the draft. Look, Kansas City. If you want to build through Kansas City like Borgonzi's been and done, those are draft picks right there. And you do that by trading away the number 1 pick if there's not the organizational, talent at the position. The true, like, transcendent talent you cannot pass on if it's by far and away the top player in the NFL draft that year. No matter how bad the draft is, you have to draft based on your draft and on your roster. This team is depleted of true elite caliber talent. If that guy's there, you can't pass on him. But it would be hard for me, Willie, to pass on a load of picks to set myself up for the future, both this immediate future and 26 and 27.
Any impressions? Because you probably look at it closer than we do. D Mace, of course, worked with Fossil directly when Fossil was a younger coach. But any impressions of the coaching changes that jump out to you?
That's the one. I mean, they go from the worst special teams to the guy who's been a part of the best. It has the same feel of Bill Callahan as the offensive line coach last year. And you have the same type of results. And I would say special teams on the back end of the roster, that's how you piece together a strong special teams talented core. And his groups have always done that. And they've been very creative, too, on how they've done it. Through the Jeff Fisher era in St. Louis, they were known for always going to play Seattle and coming up with some way to manufacture some spark on special teams through Fossil, through Bones. Same thing when they moved to LA, and he's bounced around some, but it's not due to anything other than, the coaches not working out with ownership. But good coaches have always tried to go after him and hire him. And yeah, I mean, the Titans end up being fortunate that the Cowboys don't stick with Mike McCarthy, because they upgraded a significant way. It's a complete 180-degree turn from where they were.
Jonathan Hutton from Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow joining us on the program as he does every week. Hutton, great stuff, my friend. Let's talk next week.
No doubt. Hey, and I mentioned this, one quick thing on Bones Fossil. You go from learning on the job, it's a position where you're not doing that now, a coaching position. He's been there, done that. That's a huge positive for them. Always great to join you guys. Have a great rest of the week.
You as well, Hutton. Thank you. 615-737-1025. We'll get back into the NFL draft coming up next. We're all about to get a lot smarter. We're all going to learn something
Nobel Prize.
from a Nobel Prize winning economist as it relates to the NFL draft. That's a sentence I never thought I would say aloud. And you're probably wondering, what the hell is Adam talking about? And we'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Hey, let's talk F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. They have a lot of different ways that they can help you, and a little change can go a long way. Remember, banking made easy on purpose. When you're trying to save money, you need ways to do it where you're not thinking about it all day long. Nobody wants to do that. You got to live your life. You got to have fun. F&M's debit card roundup feature called the Smart Swipe. It's a great tool that deposits change into your savings account every time you make a debit card purchase. So just do your thing. Go get your coffee, go get your lunch, get your gas. Every purchase you make will round up to the nearest dollar. And you transfer the difference, 72 cents, 29 cents, whatever it is, they go right into your savings account. And over time, you will accumulate savings. Simple way to save money every time you use your debit card. They've got a lot of tools like that. Stop by one of their branches or visit them online at myfmbank.com. They've got 20 locations. Tell them you heard about Smart Swipe from us here on 102.5 The Game, because all of us know a little change can make all of the difference. myfmbank.com, member FDIC.
Nashville's best deal this week is Single Tree Barbecue in Murfreesboro. Single Tree Barbecue is a local veteran-owned and operated business only serving world-class barbecue with the perfect combination of sides and desserts. Get half off a $25 gift card now while supplies last at theGameNashville.com/deals. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Bridgestone Arena, Predators and Canucks tonight at 8 o'clock. Willie, yesterday you were referencing an article in passing. You weren't able to remember it as we were discussing it, but
I
you
misremembered, as Roger Clemens said. Back in
yes.
the day.
You found the article. It was
I
written.
found it.
It was written in April by Alec Lewis at The Athletic. The headline: NFL teams know the best way to draft, so why aren't they doing it? And a big part of this story is this paper that was written by Cade Macy and Richard H. Thaler. And if you're thinking to yourself, who the heck are these guys? I don't blame you. They are economists. By the way, Richard H. Thaler won the 2017 Nobel Prize in Economics. So I think he knows what he's talking about when it comes to these sorts of things. The name of the paper was Overconfidence versus Market Efficiency in the National Football League. It was written by, again, Cade Macy and Richard H. Thaler of the National Bureau of Economic Research. And you're hearing all of these big words, and that some guy who won the Nobel Prize wrote a paper about the NFL, and you're thinking to yourself, what the heck? But this was the hypothesis of this paper, which was written in 2005. And if I recall correctly, Willie, it looked at NFL drafts between 1998 and 2004.
1988
1988
and 2004.
through 2004. So nearly 2 decades worth of a sample size. The hypothesis that these two look to study in this paper, quote, teams overestimate their abilities to delineate between stars and flops, and because of that, they overvalue the, quote, right to choose in the draft. And their findings, after examining every draft pick and trade from 1988 to 2004, teams massively overestimate their abilities to delineate between stars and flops. And because of that, they heavily overvalue the, quote unquote, right to choose in the draft. I'll let you take it from here.
Well, I think it's particularly, I brought this up last summer or last year when it came out, because I've always looked at this, and that's kind of how I've leaned. But after reading this, with the Titans having the first pick, I would challenge anybody to read this and really study it. Your brain might hurt for a little bit because there's a lot of
It's a
lingo
63-page
It's
paper.
I'm not
you
telling
say
you to
your
read the
brain to
six-
be hurting for a little bit. No, they brain to be hurting for the rest of their lives, man.
Well, I'm not suggesting to read the 63
Right.
page
Read the
study.
article in the
Just read
Athletic
the
that
article.
references.
The article will take you like 15
You
minutes.
need more than Rocks for Jocks
Exactly.
to understand
But basically what
the
happened,
actual paper.
some football people, and I would say they have a profile of a Chad Brinker, right? Have studied enough about what this stuff means, the math, and they are also enough of a football person that football people listen to them. I know Chad Brinker's stock is probably at an all-time low. Like, you can get him on the penny stocks, right?
Mhm.
Leonardo DiCaprio in that movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, when he goes back to the, remember he gets thrown out. He starts from the bottom. He's calling and getting people going on the penny stocks. Man, we can get some margins on this. And he builds himself back up. That's where Chad Brinker is right now, right? Nobody really believes in him. But he does have the profile of being able to take analytic stuff and fancy schmancy economic studies that are 63-page long, and then communicate to the old school football guys that are going, hey, what does all this stuff mean? Do we even care? Why should we care? You need those people to bridge the gap. So that's what happened historically with this. They took this study, a few people, and said, hey, they're getting this all wrong. We got to figure out how we use it. And the ironic part is, you can explain this to regular football people, GMs, owners, scouts, and they nod their head and go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But when the time comes when it's your pick, they can't resist saying, we got to have this guy. I got to have Derek Mason. I believe in Derek Mason. Don't trade down and get maybe 2 Derek Masons. We got to have this Derek Mason right now. So this is what I think is really interesting. With the first pick, this is the synopsis of the 63-page study. The number one point, the treasured number one overall pick in the draft, is actually the least valuable in the first round, according to the surplus value a team can create with that pick. So It doesn't mean that the first pick in the draft isn't a good player. Oftentimes he's a great player. Could be a franchise changer, but sometimes it's not. And what you can get for that first pick over time, remember
more
he studied
valuable.
20-something drafts in a row. Odds are you're going to get a lot more. In fact, teams generated a 174% return on trades by foregoing a pick this year for multiple picks in the following year. So the common thread was trading down to get more picks is effective. And no more so than when you have the first pick in the draft. And here's the other little point that I thought was interesting. Across all rounds, the probability that a player starts more games than the next player chosen at his position is only 53%. So it's almost 50-50 that if you take the best linebacker on the board, that the next linebacker does just the same, if not better. It's about 50-50. And I realize not all drafts are the same, and there's a lot of nuance to this, but this is a study of the board over time. And it's not biased by any one draft or another. It's just studying the drafts every year and coming up with what are the themes that we see.
So basically, this is just another formula that these two individuals over a course of time sort of went through, and this is based upon their findings
Between
This is-
1988 and 2004.
This is a method.
Right.
This is another method of getting a good player and not wasting that number one pick. Now, again, there's a lot of variables. Like you said, there are a lot of other things that come into play. And I think the most notable thing is the fan base. Because the fan base wants to what? They want to win now.
Right. And see, this is what the article talks about. The emotions
Exactly.
of trying to appease the fan base or appease the owner,
Mhm.
the owner's desire to win. I don't care what these things are. We got to win right now.
Exactly.
We got to take this guy.
That may be the right.
That's why
way.
people make mistakes, according to this.
And
That's
maybe
their
that,
theory.
And maybe that could have been sort of one of the reasons why Amy chose to align herself with Brinker rather than Rand Carthon. Because Rand was coming at it from hey, listen, we got to get their guy because we got to win now. Whereas Brinker's coming at it from a sort of, we got to build our team up and win that way. Because like you said, you may get that one guy and you may change your team. But then again, you may not get that one guy that you said was going to change your team. He may not change the fate of your franchise.
Here's one other small point that I think you will find interesting, Derek. You know who they thought was the best team over time at this principle of trading down to get more picks?
I would say it had in recent memory, Baltimore.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Ravens are the
Yeah.
best at doing that. That is, and they,
Which you can speak to from experience.
yes. And who was it? Eric DaCosta
Uh-huh.
talks about it proudly in the interview. He says, I don't know if he said, I don't think this is that fancy. Basically, if you have more throws at the dartboard,
Mhm.
we feel like we have a better chance. And Ozzie Newsome is also credited as being one of the front runners in working that principle.
You know why they're able
trading
to
down and getting more picks.
You know why they're able to do that? Because the owner, as much as they love him, because they do. I mean, everybody throughout that building, I don't think there's a person that would have a bad thing to say about Mr. Bisciotti, me included. But the owner trusts the people that he's hired. He's not listening to the fan base, because the fan base would tell you, fire John Harbaugh. He's had his tenure here. Or in Pittsburgh, the fan base would say, well, it may be time for Tomlin to go. But the ownership says, no, we've hired good people and we're going to be patient. We're not going to. That's why teams or organizations like Baltimore and Pittsburgh are able to win for a long period of time.
615-737-1025. We'll continue this conversation next, but we want you to get in on it as well. So 615-737-1025. Your philosophy as it relates to the Tennessee Titans and the number one overall pick. We'll do that next. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Hey, it's time to tell you about Loan Pronto. And once again, here's the message to people out there that are envisioning, hey, how do I get the finances ready to go for this home improvement project? Or I really need to pay off this car. I need to pay this bill that's coming due, whatever it might be. Some credit card bills that maybe be piling up with high interest rates. All of these reasons could be the reason that if you own a home, you can realize that you get that money in less than a week with Loan Pronto and their system. They quickly can convert home equity into cold hard cash so that you can take that money and do what you need to do with it and put yourself in a better position. Pay off that huge credit card bill that's been piling up with interest, or start that home remodeling project and make your home even more valuable. You can get improved as little as 1 day with no hard credit pull, and they will get this to you quick. No paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, often no appraisal. Call Loan Pronto, find out more. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780, or go to loanpronto.com. That's loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 1025, 1063. The Game, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here. Talking an article from The Athletic from last April leading into last year's draft, which referenced a paper written in 2005, Overconfidence versus Market Efficiency in the National Football League, commissioned by the National Bureau of Economic Research. There was another interesting part of this story, Willie, that I clipped that I wanted to read aloud. Bill Polian, the longtime NFL executive, was mentioned in this story. So the author, Alec Lewis, writes, quote, "The idea of trading down in particular consistently repulsed Polian. I firmly do not believe you trade a high pick, which is going to be a difference maker, in order to pick up 2 picks, Polian said. But that's the issue, one former NFL executive pointed out. That logic assumes the player you're initially picking will actually become a difference maker. Quote, the problem for everyone in sports is that nobody wants to admit how random and arbitrary it is, the former executive said. Admitting that it's arbitrary takes away from your specific abilities.
Yes, and Bill Polian is a fascinating character in this because Polian truly believes that, and as you should, it's your job as a scout, as a GM, to be able to identify who the next great players are going to be. Mm-hmm. It's just an inexact science. That's what the study shows, is no matter how good you are, and Bill Polian is he in the Hall of Fame? He built several different great teams. Mm-hmm. He's as good as there's been over the long haul. He wasn't right all the time, but he doesn't really subscribe to what the study shows, because I've argued with a lot of friends over this, and it's talked about in here, how much luck is involved, right? You could do all the homework on a guy, all of the study. You're sure that he's going to be the next great X, but you got to be a little lucky too, don't you? I don't know what the percentage is, but I do think sometimes you can think you're smarter than everybody else. And in some cases, you're smarter than a lot of other teams that might be dysfunctional. And there's a lot of things in this article that talk about where the dysfunction comes from. Like you mentioned, D-Mace, mm-hmm. the lure of the fans telling you got to do this, you got to do this. But also within your think tank, one coach arguing something for his own side of the ball mm-hmm. versus another coach that's arguing for somebody on his side of the ball, pulling at those forces, right? I think that's what the human element brings to this, whereas this study to me is poignant because it takes all of the emotion out and just looks at the results of 25 or 26 drafts.
And that's why I believe there's not an exact science on how or what you should do with that number 1 pick. Now, there are several, people have, theories on how it should go, or based upon what they've seen, written papers about how or what's the best way to sort of build your team. But if you're talking to a guy like Bill Polian, he's like, no, I'm not trading my picks. I'm taking a guy. But if you look at it, when his last 2 really big drafts was drafting Peyton Manning and then drafting Andrew Luck. Well, when Peyton Manning came out, it was a no-brainer. I mean, everybody wanted Peyton Manning. Even if you had a quarterback, if you can get Peyton Manning, I think you would have gotten him.
Brian Callahan at the Senior Bowl was talking about the draft process. And mm-hmm. That was yesterday. And I think the question was about when will you know? Like, when will you know, which player rises to the top of your list? And he was like, well, in Cincinnati, we knew pretty early we were taking Joe Burrow. Like,
exactly.
you knew what you were getting.
So
at.
when you look at it from that prism, it's like, no, I'm not trading away,
right.
No matter how many people I get.
And there's no question that has to be factored in. Like Shaquille O'Neal. Do you think the Magic weren't going to take Shaquille O'Neal when they won the lottery?
I don't care what you get.
But the next year, they won the lottery again mm-hmm. and traded the pick. Remember, they took Chris Webber and then made the pick to get more picks to get Penny Hardaway. Yes. So they used both philosophies, right?
But it was different years. Based upon what they needed.
2 years in a row. I mean, you talk about getting lucky.
Absolutely. But
luck was involved in that.
So
Orlando winning 2 straight lotteries to get the first pick.
Some magic, perhaps.
So I can see, I can see sort of both sides of the coin. There's no sort of, right way, a wrong way. Some teams just have had luck, with the way that they've done it. Not to say that they've hit 100% of the time, but they've hit enough and at a particular position where, if they do miss, then we still got that quarterback that is going to lead our franchise. Just like Kansas City, it's like, okay, if we do miss on one of our first rounders, let's not miss on too many of them. But if we do miss on one of our first rounders, we still got Patrick Mahomes.
There was a question on our text line, which I found to be very interesting. An unnamed texter. So if you're listening, text us. I want to give you proper credit. One texter says, given the info that Willie just gave us, would you expect other teams to give up that surplus value for the first pick in this draft, which is considered maybe a weaker?
That is
draft?
a good question, because every draft is different. But the theme of the article is that even though you should have learned by now, there are still teams that cannot resist jumping up and taking the first round pick. But it's a fair question. This particular year, with these particular players, what would be the best offer you will get for the first pick in the draft? And how far do you have to go down? You know, there's all obviously very specific things they have to address. Do we want to go down to 3? Do we want to go down to 4? How far down are we willing to go to get what we want for that first round pick, or for that first overall pick? What's the value? Because it's only worth what somebody's going to call you. You could say, hey, we think it's worth 3 first rounders and 2 second rounders. This is what our chart says it's worth. But if nobody calls you and offers that, then it's only worth what that best offer is.
Right.
Yeah.
One texter mentions the Giants. I guess the Giants are, according to the texter, desperate for Shedeur Sanders. Where are the Giants picking? Are they 2 or 3?
No.
4?
3 or 4, I think. But that's a great point. You hope. I think what you hope
4
is that people do, that 2 or 3 teams do fall in love with, whether it's Sanders or Cam Ward, whoever the first
They're
pick
third.
is.
The Giants are third.
But it's not even. See, I think we're in
you want people compete. You want people competing for that first pick. That's how you really get the.
I think we're just honing in, and rightfully so, because typically drafts are led by quarterbacks, unless you have this extraordinary, guy like Travis Hunter at another position that may warrant, first overall pick type of transaction. But I think we always look at it from the prism of the quarterback. Like, there's no quarterback, so nobody's willing to move up. But that's an assumption. Somebody may be able to want to move up for Abdul Carter, because they feel if they don't get him at number 1 or 2, somebody's going to take him at 3. So we got to do what's necessary to jump up to get him. Or Travis Hunter. They may say, we got our quarterback, but we still need to move up. New England, for instance. We feel we got our quarterback, but we may give up a little bit, just a tad bit more, because we want now that who we may think is that generational guy in Travis Hunter.
That's a good point. And another example from the past is Jared Goff. We went over to Adam, mentioned his record at California. He was a very nondescript, it was not a household name.
It wasn't nothing flashy.
Yeah, nobody had ever heard of him in college. Not really. And Carson Wentz, for that matter, who I think was the second pick in that draft. But they shot up the chart, and the Rams were willing to trade John Robinson, a pretty good haul that to his liking, to get Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Yep.
He wasn't hyped up. I don't remember. Oh, Jared Goff, you got to go get Jared Goff. He is the hands down. That wasn't the conversation for that particular draft.
615-737-1025. We'll continue this conversation to start our final hour. Willie Darnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here. A crowd has formed
Yes, I'm like, Adam, are
at
you in
Barrel
trouble?
House. Chase McCabe, he came in here. He was out of breath. He said, "Oh my gosh, guys, we have an announcement to make. I forgot to tell you. Do you have time to do it?" And when Chase asks us to do something, the answer is always going to be yes.
And I said, Adam did it.
I didn't do
Yeah.
anything, my friend, but I have the announcement right here, and I want to turn it over to Brad Willis, who is the executive director of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. He has an announcement to share with all of us, but specifically one person in particular.
That's right. And I appreciate the time. Also, completely understanding that whenever the entire front office from the radio station shows up, it's either really bad news or it's really good news.
Somebody's getting in trouble.
Somebody, yeah, it could be. But I'm actually here on behalf of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame because we are going through our process of naming our Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame class of 2025. And our board of directors would like to extend an invitation to one Derek Mason to join the class of 2025 as the one who is still the all-time leading receiver in Tennessee Titans football history and who made a mark on this state and the team here in Nashville with the Titans on their run through the Super Bowl and all the years around it, starting all the way back in '97 when he was drafted by the Oilers. Derek Mason, Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer for the class of 2025. We wanted to reach out to you, say congratulations and welcome.
Speech.
I have honestly, I have nothing. I don't know what to say. Honestly, I really don't.
I'm just surprised I didn't spoil it before 1 o'clock.
Yes.
We did a good job of that.
Yeah, you probably can tell in my voice that it was totally unexpected. You know, when you, and it's almost like I'm writing a speech as I'm talking in a sense. But I'm gonna keep it very brief because I know we got to get back to the real stuff, the people that want to hear about the sports. But when you enter into a new city and a city you've never been in, had never been in the state of Tennessee or city of Nashville, to come here and to grow as a individual, your family grows, you grow as a professional, and you're able to put time into a city that has embraced you. They embraced me, not only me, they embraced the Tennessee Titans organization, and they have continued to do as such. And more importantly, I think they've continued to embrace me. I left, not because I wanted to, but I left, but then I came back. And that just speaks volumes for the city. I enjoyed the city. I still love the city. I love the Titans. I love the Predators as well. Every sports team here in Nashville, I really, truly enjoy. And I'm appreciative of you guys and everybody that thought enough of me, of my playing days, to award me such a high honor. I do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you guys. I didn't know this was coming at all, not one bit. Now I get to join, a long list or a good list of former Titan players that are now sitting in the Hall of Fame as well, Tennessee Hall of Fame as well. So thank y'all. I appreciate it. And again,
We got
I get something to go home and tell my kids. Like I
Yeah.
get to tell my kids this. So it's an honor for me, and I thank you. I really do.
You made a connection with this fan base from the moment you set foot in Nashville, and you continue to make a connection with the fan base here on 102.5 and, everything that you do every day. It's you mentioned a list of Tennessee Titans who are in the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. You talk about the Steve McNairs and the Eddie Georges and, the Javon Curse, Jeff Fisher is in, Keith Bullock is in. You talk about the nucleus of what the early days of the Tennessee Titans franchise was. You don't tell that story without Derek Mason. And so we're very excited that you're part of this group and wanted to extend the invite, made sure to include your radio family here because they wanted to celebrate you as well. So congratulations, and we're excited to have you.
Thank you.
All right.
And thank
Way to
y'all.
go,
Thank the
D-Mace.
radio station, Bud, everybody involved, because y'all allowed my voice to continue to sort of go over these airwaves here in Nashville, and the fans would never forget me because of my second career here on 102.5 The Game. So I thank y'all as well.
We'll work on that speech between now and the induction ceremony, which will take place on Saturday, July 19th at the Omni Nashville Downtown Hotel. So we will
Save the date.
July 19th. Tickets information will be announced soon. We will workshop your speech over the next few months. But I thought that was great for just right off the cuff. Brad, thank you so much for joining
Thank you,
us
guys.
and surprising
Appreciate
us
it.
today
Thank you.
with that great news. Derek Mason, a soon-to-be new member of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. Well-deserved, my friend. You know, you have made an indelible mark on this community. It's been a pleasure working with you. I know Willie has been working with you for much longer than I have, but I'm actually, I guess I've said multiple times, I am terrible at keeping secrets.
Mhm.
So when Chase told me that this was happening, I had to make sure. I texted.
It helped that you
No
were
wonder
not in
that
the studio.
Yeah, no
yesterday.
wonder Chase said, "Are you coming to
Yeah.
work like today?"
I
I'm like,
didn't
yeah.
forget the announcement. I just
He
wanted
did
to,
not.
I just wanted to mess with you.
But Chase, earlier today, I just wanted to make sure we had everything put together. So I texted Chase and Willie, and I sent the text, and I said, "Oh my God, did I leave Derek on this?" And thankfully, Derek was not involved, so the surprise wasn't spoiled. But if anyone was going to do it, it was going to be me. So congratulations,
Thank
Derek.
you. Thank you.
Well-deserved honor. Willie, do you have any best man words that you would like?
No. I
Derek.
do want to thank Brad. Brad has gotten really good at this. This is the second time that I've watched him just kind of stealth sneak in for the surprise. I saw him do it for Terry Crisp a couple years ago. So he's got this routine down. So Brad, it's good to see you as always. And man, it's cool to watch this, like the reaction on people's faces when they get this honor. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, Willie. I
Way to go.
appreciate it.
And thanks for getting sick. So because that allowed us, you doing the show from home, that helped us keep the secret under wraps.
Okay.
So
well,
getting
good.
sick was a good thing.
So
after all.
we could plot, in the studio. Like D-Mace isn't here.
So y'all
Luckily
got
there
me
wasn't
sick.
an open mic.
I see
Now
it
that
now.
I wish
can
we had that
neither
kind of power.
confirm nor deny. My kid brings home God knows what from preschool, so it's possible. It's possible, but yes, thank you, Brad, for coming and making
Thank
this
you, Brad.
announcement and
Appreciate it.
surprising Derek Mason, the newest member of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame. The induction ceremony will take place Saturday, July 19th at the Omni Nashville Downtown Hotel, and we will all be there to celebrate Derek, who probably deserves to be in more Hall of Fames, in my personal
I
opinion.
take this one. I take this one right here. I will take it, and I will not complain.
Next stop,
Best believe.
Canton, my friend. That's what we want to see. So we'll take a break here. We'll let Derek congratulate Derek. We'll be back to talk more Titans. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D. Mace Vingan, Adonic, 1025, 1063, The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, newly minted Tennessee Sports Hall of Famer, Derek Mason. We're so proud of you, Derek. Derek will be inducted into the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame this summer.
D-Mace, you've got the medal there. It looks like it doesn't look like it has a neck thing, but it might. I don't know. But I'm just weighing that with your prize that you won a couple years ago when you won the silly underdog competition. Which one has a little bit more?
Which one? I don't know what this prize was. What prize did he win for silly underdog?
There wasn't one.
No, remember it was supposed to be. I was supposed to be in the
bragging rights.
No. Remember whatever happened to my red jacket?
That's right, the red jacket. We're
Whatever
supposed to have
happened-
a red
exactly.
jacket. Yeah.
It happened during
Yeah.
COVID.
See,
so
see what happened?
That was-
What had happened is we ordered it, and then during COVID we lost it.
And then we haven't really come up with one since.
yeah, we really
So,
haven't.
Blame
we,
COVID.
we got a red jacket. He was in the 3D Hall of Fame.
3D
That's
Hall
right,
of
the
Fame.
3D Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to skip giving out any prizes for
Oh,
silly
man.
underdog picks this year because Chris Sanders won.
Exactly.
So Chris Sanders is not going to get anything. By the way, I was thinking about this completely off topic. When Ohio State won the national championship, I thought to myself, Chris Sanders better not be celebrating this after he picked Michigan to beat Ohio
Exactly,
State.
and he
man.
was,
I'm sure he was.
and he was.
Chris, if you're listening,
He's up in Columbus now, having fun and going. If they only knew.
if they
If they only knew.
Benedict Arnold.
There's going to be somebody up there saying,
Yes.
"Hey, wait, do you know what Chris Sanders did?"
Hey, y'all remember? Hey, Chris. And it's gonna start spreading
It's gonna
around.
spread around.
well, what you
That's
need to
gonna
do
happen.
with that nice medal you have now is just
Yes.
go to different establishments and say, they'll say that'll be $20. You're like, no,
Put that right on the
Put that
table.
right on the table.
Yeah.
it might as well be a key to the city, as far as I'm concerned. So yes, we're
Y'all
all very proud.
But y'all must not know about me and stuff like that. I will never, ever, ever use that as a leverage ever. At least I won't. Now,
But
other
you don't
people
have
may.
to.
Yeah, but other people may. But I don't, because I've seen that happen one time, and it wasn't good. And I said, you know what? That I will never
Well,
do.
now you have to tell us.
Exactly. So this was my first year in the NFL, and we were out. It was a few guys. We were out, and no, we were in Atlanta. Actually, we were in Atlanta, and it was New Year's Eve or something. And we saw one of the dudes, go up to the front, and it was like, "Yeah, I'm so," and they were like, "So, get to the back of the line." And I saw that. I said, "I will not do that because I don't want to be that guy or
Yeah.
girl that gets sent back to the end of the line. Like, I don't care who you are.
No.
I don't want to be that guy."
No, absolutely not. So you don't have to do that, Derek. People around here would love to.
I love the people
Would
around. I
love,
love
to
everybody.
treat you anytime they can. Congratulations, rolling in on the text line. But getting back to our conversation about the Titans, we look at a lot of mock drafts. Obviously, that's what we're going to be doing a lot between now and the actual NFL draft in April, because the Titans have the #1 overall pick. And usually, when we look at mock drafts, we look at Mel Kiper or Field Yates or Matt Miller from ESPN or Daniel Jeremiah on NFL Network or Dane Brugler at The Athletic, all of whom do a great job. I am personally partial to the NFL coverage done at The Ringer, which is not a site that you may associate with NFL coverage, but I think they do a fabulous job. And they just released their draft guide. And I'm looking at, their mock draft. What I love about The Ringer in general, which was created by Bill Simmons, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
is it has that sort of Bill Simmons-esque irreverent humor. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
And at the same time, does do a lot of the fancy stats
yes,
as well.
No, they do.
It's a good blend of that
They do a great job
without
So-
going over your head and getting all nerdy.
Right. So I'm looking at some of their comparisons. And that's something that we fall prey to, I think, at this time of year when you see a draft prospect. And, we want to know, who does Shedeur Sanders remind people of from the NFL? And oftentimes, I feel like those comparisons are way too lofty. So, for example, the shades of, which is what The Ringer calls it, the shades of Shedeur Sanders has shades of, like if Deion Sanders had a slow son who played quarterback.
Is that a compliment or a dig?
I don't know.
So like, and then what's funny is Travis Hunter, shades of Deion Sanders. So at the top of their draft guide with the number 1 pick, they have the Titans taking Cam Ward, which is not a surprise. Cam Ward has been on a lot of number 1 picks and mock drafts. So here was the comparison they made for Cam Ward. Shades of Jordan Love. So this is what I was thinking. If Cam Ward ended up being Jordan Love, who Jordan Love was a low first-round draft pick, late in the first round for the Green Bay Packers, took him a minute to blossom. He didn't play right away, had a incredible second half of last season, signed a gigantic contract. This is the question I have for Titans fans. If Cam Ward became Jordan Love, would that be worthy of the number 1 pick to you in the NFL draft? That's the question I pose to you and to our listeners as well.
It's a good question because we're so early in the Jordan Love book, right?
Yeah.
We're on chapter 3 or 4.
It looks good.
He looks good. He's getting paid, as we mentioned. It's going to follow him because he's getting paid high-end money. There will be high-end expectations, which he hasn't caught up to yet, even though he's done a lot. So I'd love to know what the finished product. What does Jordan Love look like after 7 years, after 8 years? Because that's really what you're looking at. But I didn't know. I would not have thought that off the top of my head. Cam Ward, Jordan Love.
So
what are they saying is lines up?
So they describe generally Cam Ward as a rugged, battle-tested quarterback with a strong arm, poised in the pocket, and out-of-structure play-making talent. Why he could rise. Ward is a seasoned, highly experienced passer with a well-built frame, a strong arm, and talent for creating big plays. Why he could fail. He plays with too much dip on his chip at times and will force balls into tight coverage when he doesn't need to. Plays with too much dip on his chip. So it doesn't specifically compare Cam Ward to Jordan Love, but whoever put this together, and again, I think the Ringer has a great stable of NFL analysts. They compare him to Jordan Love.
Again, this is the mistake. Again, I go back to what I've been saying. Everybody thinks that you got to have Patrick Mahomes to win a Super Bowl. Everybody wants a Patrick Mahomes, a Lamar Jackson, a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow, just those 4 quarterbacks. But in reality, that's not going to be the case. So when you look at a Cam Ward and you say, well, if you drafted Cam Ward, he would be Love of Green Bay, but you drafted him at the number 1 pick. Would you take that? I would say, because I'm not coming from the standpoint of I gotta have Mahomes, because I understand there's only one Mahomes. So if he turns out to be Jordan Love, what Jordan Love is right now, yes, I would draft that number 1. Why? Because what it tells me is I'm going to have a winning team. And as I continue to build my team around the quarterback, we will be a better team. As Green Bay continues to build their team, Love will continue to show that he's in command of what's going on. And he may end up winning the Super Bowl, but he may not. But he may end up being, listen, Jim Kelly was Buffalo's franchise quarterback, may have been the best quarterback in Buffalo franchise history. Did he ever win the Super Bowl? No, he took him to 4, but I'm sure they wouldn't have traded Jim Kelly for any other quarterback out there. Why? Because Jim Kelly was a winner. It wasn't his fault that they were losing games. So if I can get me a Love, even at number 1, then I'm taking that, because I know that everybody doesn't have a Patrick Mahomes, but at least if I have a Love, I know I got a shot at winning the Super Bowl.
What do you think, Willie?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we knew what you could be. Like, I still think we know what love is. Isn't that what is love?
Baby, don't hurt me.
We don't know what love is.
Don't hurt me.
You don't know what love
How
is.
do you define love?
I want to know what love is. I want you to show me. Sorry, I just had to. By the way,
Foreigner,
Jordan,
sung by Adam. That's before his time, 80s. That's pretty good.
not my go-to karaoke song. It's
yeah.
actually Your Love by The Outfield. It's my go-to karaoke song.
That's a difficult song to sing. By
Jordan Love, I didn't say it was good. Jordan Love has started 33 games over 4 seasons in the NFL.
Right. So he's just scratching the
Hold on.
surface.
Exactly.
This is why it's the question. And this is why we debate every year the same things, and we don't know any more this year than we did last year, right? About what a guy's future holds. But it's not going to stop the Ringer and the Athletic and every site that we think is worth its salt from weighing in on these guys. We're just getting started on the paralysis by analysis of Ward and Shedeur Sanders in particular, right? By the end of this thing, there's no telling what people are going to think of these guys. We haven't even gotten to the Wonderlick and what was the other?
The Q2?
The Q2 or the one based in Nashville that's got all your brain, that's got it all figured out, and then C.J. Stroud just blew that out of the water, right? He supposedly failed.
Is anybody using that?
Yeah.
Is anybody
I haven't heard much
test?
about that since. Yeah.
It was C.J. Stroud, right? He had apparently a bad score.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah. He was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then a couple years later, he looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Clay is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Clay, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Hey, Willie. You should be proud as a former Commodore with the Mark Byington and the boys are doing. But anyway, I wanted to comment on the Titans and ask y'all about, now they've hired a new GM and got the draft coming up in April. Where do y'all think they'll go with the number one pick? And what do you think the most glaring need is? I mean, they might need offensive line. They might need a quarterback. What do y'all think?
Thanks for the call, Clay.
I think Clay just called to give a shout out to the Commodores.
Yeah,
honestly,
probably.
So.
Probably. By the way, I did notice this, and we have referred to Coach Willie on the program. Like, don't text Willie during a Vanderbilt game of any kind because he doesn't like to get ahead of himself.
Exactly.
So when
until the game is over,
when Vanderbilt is winning and we're texting him, "Oh, Willie, look at this," he does not text back until the game is over. I just do want to point this out, and I said this to Willie earlier. He said, "It's still early. It's still early." The Vanderbilt Commodores are ahead of the Kentucky Wildcats and the Tennessee Volunteers in the SEC men's basketball standings. Just take a screenshot of it, which I know neither of you know how to do. I will teach you again how to take an actual screenshot, not the picture on your phone of your screen. But just let's appreciate the fact that Vanderbilt basketball, it has a better SEC record than Kentucky and Tennessee.
Willie doesn't want to hear that right now.
That and a quarter will get you a game with Miss Pac-Man at the local convenience store.
Kevin on our text line says, when you're picking this high, the upside is too high not to take the chance of one of them. Hit your back in business. If not, you're right where you are. Hit the pick and you're back in business. If not, you're right where you are anyway. Keep building for 2 more years. And then he says, then suck for Arch Manning. I'm not even thinking about Arch Manning right now. But like, I haven't made a firm decision on what I want the Titans to do. This is going to change significantly over the next couple of months. I am of the mind right now, key phrase right now, that they should trade the pick. I based on what we were discussing in the previous hour about the value that the Titans could get, there is no surefire number 1 overall pick. As I said, Brian Callahan was talking about the Senior Bowl. It's like, yeah, we knew pretty early we were taking Joe Burrow. There wasn't a lot of work they really needed to do. They were going to take Joe Burrow. And there isn't someone like that in this draft, apparently. So if it were me, I would trade back.
I look at it as, and I've said this before, listen, whatever you do, whether it be, because I know that where this franchise is, the next move is going to be the most critical move that they make in regards to where this franchise go from here. So if you choose to keep that number 1 pick, and I'm not saying it needs to be a quarterback that you draft. Whoever you draft, if you choose to keep that number 1 pick, he needs to be an impact player. He does. He needs to be an impact player right away. Because if he's not, then why keep the pick? You just wasted the pick. But if you draft, if you trade out of it, you still need to do what's best for the organization as in regards to the players that you're choosing when you move out of that, because you can move out of that spot and still not make the right choices. So whatever choice the Titans choose to make, I hope is one that's best for the organization, because again, it goes to, you're asking your fans to pay all this money for this new stadium, to sit in these seats. And if you don't have a winning product on the field, about time they open up those doors for you to play in, then I think you would have done your fan base an injustice, especially with all of the turmoil that has been going on. It seems like y'all that are in the right space as far as upper management. It seems y'all got everything in a row. Now the next part is putting a good team on the field before you get into that stadium.
Willie, one thing in this article from Alec Lewis of The Athletic that we referenced in the previous hour that Derek just sort of touched on, this was part of the story. Quote, public pressure may prevent some teams from enacting the newer approach. Make 7 picks and you'll be judged 7 times. Make 3 trades and 10 picks and you'll be judged 13 times. Watch other teams nail picks you traded or miss on picks you traded for, and negative narratives can quickly form.
Jared would never do anything like that, would he? No, he doesn't do that. What are they talking about? But that is a great point. That's the human nature of it that does influence.
Ownership
some of
plays
these
a pivotal role in all of this.
So and you got me thinking along those lines, Derek, about the new stadium. Because my philosophy, I agree with this philosophy from the article that I think trading down is the way to go, especially where the Titans are. They are thin on number 1 picks, overall number 1 draft picks in general, draft capital in general. They're thin on that. They're also thin on elite players on their roster right now. They're way, way low. So more picks makes a lot of sense. So I'm on board with that. Could the fact that a new stadium is being built and you have a target of wanting to be a competitive team on the rise when that stadium opens, could that help you stay on the ball and not get impatient more so than a normal circumstance?
Yeah, I can see. Because,
maybe you could.
Because just think about this from this standpoint. Teams that have moved into new stadiums. When the Rams were leaving St. Louis, that's when all that stuff went down, the trading for the number 1 pick. They got their quarterback and they moving into their new stadium. So everybody's like up, everybody's excited. New quarterback moving to a new stadium, a quarterback drafted number 1 overall. So people have high hopes. And listen, for no matter what you think about Jared Goff, he led a team to a Super Bowl. You look at other teams that subsequently moved into new stadiums. The Oakland Raiders tried it when they moved to Vegas. What did Derek Carr? They re-upped his contract, and they brought in Devontae Adams. Now, as we're going to this new stadium, we're getting buzz around the team. That's what you got to start generating now. And what generates buzz around this team? A quarterback or a team that the fan base feels they can win. When you go into that new stadium, you got to drum up the buzz to get people to buy the tickets. Now, that may seem like, but that's totally opposite of what, the actual game. Yes. But then again, you fans want to be able to have a reason to buy tickets.
I also like the idea of maybe the year you go into the stadium is you've got the quarterback, but you've had a year or two of a couple more drafts to help that quarterback
97,
with players around
98. Tennessee Titans.
There you go.
You go into a new stadium. Now you feel you got your quarterback. Now he's seasoned enough where now you can put the team sort of on halfway on his back and the other, obviously, Eddie George. But you're going into a new stadium with a young quarterback that has buzz around him and a young running back that has buzz around him and a young head coach.
Well, I look at Bryce Young and even Caleb Williams to some degree. And Caleb Williams, they thought they had a good supporting cast to give him a chance. As it turned out, it didn't go very well. But Bryce Young in particular, I've seen some first overall picks go in and start, and there's just nothing for them, nothing in the way of support around that guy, and he really struggles. So that's maybe an argument to trade down, get a lot of picks, maybe get some premier pieces, and then you've got the table set to where a quarterback could come in early in a new stadium and be in a better chance to succeed.
615-737-1025. We'll take your calls. We'll take your text on this at 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
Okay, let's talk Lee Company. proud sponsor, Nashville Predators coverage. It starts at 7 o'clock tonight. I almost said 6. Adam, I almost did it. It is a little bit later tonight. Max Hers will get going. Start time at 8. The Vancouver Canucks are in town. It will be UC Saros against Thatcher Demko. Nope, it's not Kevin Lankinen tonight. Not sure why, but Thatcher Demko is a heck of a goalie. But everybody was hoping that the two buddies, the two Finns, would go head-to-head. Nonetheless, it's going to be an excellent game. Lee Company will be along for the ride. If you're coming down here, you'll see their display all over Smashville. Also, remember to get your air conditioning unit checked. If you got burned in the fall by not getting your heating unit checked and you were scrambling and you had to get those trucks over to your house from Lee Company in a pinch, you can avoid that by staying ahead of it with the home maintenance plan. You get the year-round checkups. You pay a small monthly fee, and then you get discounts on repairs when things need fixing. 615-567-1000 is the number. LeeCompany.com is the website. 615-567-1000 or LeeCompany.com. Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
This takes me to
Emilio!
precisely. I'm just thinking of Will Ferrell and Chris Kattan in the club.
Not at the Roxbury.
Yes.
Emilio! I would watch that movie damn near every day. I love that.
I feel
movie.
like, and Willie would know this better, I think. I feel like the hit rate of Saturday Night Live sketches and skits, I combine the two. Saturday Night Live skits that become full-length movies, I feel like the hit rate isn't great. But
Yeah. So it's like, if you're batting 333, is that a good average? It is in baseball, but is it good for
But it
SNL?
depends on what
You're
you're
going to have a
looking
few
for.
duds, right?
It depends on what you're looking for, though. In that, because Chris Rock, he has had some hits, but I guess if you're talking about just
I mean,
the
Wayne's
skits.
World was an SNL
Yeah.
skit,
That
right?
was,
Yeah.
that was a big hit. That would
Yes.
be in the 333.
Um,
What about
yes.
the ladies' man?
Yes.
I don't know if I would put that in the.
I don't know if that's it. I don't, you know,
That
that's,
should be a cult classic.
it's not
though,
bad.
Man.
It's not bad.
bad.
It's
It's
got
not
its moments,
good,
right?
but it's not bad.
It's not good.
Wasn't Coneheads
It's
one of them as
watchable.
well?
Yes.
Coneheads
Yes,
is one
yes.
for sure. Yeah.
Coneheads. Oh,
Dan
man.
Aykroyd.
But
Is that a
not-
hit?
I don't
know.
think so.
know.
I don't think so. I think you're making my point for me. Adam in Portland is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam, thank you for holding. Please go ahead.
I like the inside outside nightclub idea from Night at the Roxbury. I always thought that was a good idea. D-Max, congratulations, dude.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
guess
it.
one of your billion accolades, but it's well deserved. Man, I disagree with you today, though. I don't think I would not take a Jordan Love, because here's the difference. All right, so if I'm looking at it like just as a totality of the situation, Jordan Love had plenty of time to develop. The Titans don't have that. So even if you were to pluck him, like take Jordan Love right now and put him on the Titans, I think it's a loose situation because he has nothing around him to support him. And so if I look at the Titans in 1999 and I put them in the situation, I feel like I could put a rookie quarterback or one of these players on this team. Javon Curse made a huge difference for that team. Like that, the year before and the coming up year between Curse and Fisk and all these guys on that line, they were serious. Kenny Holmes, they were serious players on defense, and that changed the team. But one player is not going to fix this team. That's the problem I have. Is there was leadership in every single level: linebackers, linemen, wide receivers, tight ends, the whole room on that 99 team. I can't find one stinking leader. I'm not saying they're not there, and I know it pisses you off when people say that, but I'm saying I'm not seeing one alpha that's like, I've got this, guys. Everybody come behind me. I don't see that on this team, and I saw like 20 of them on our Titans from 99. So I think it's a lose-lose. I think you could debate both ways, but I think there's no good pick for this team.
Thanks, Adam.
I mean, to say there's no good picks for this team, I wouldn't agree with that. I think there are guys in this draft that are going to ultimately turn out to be really good players and even great players, I believe. So to say that there's not a guy in this draft based upon, some analysis or, of a few, and I get it. They are, some of them, they hit sometimes they don't. But when I talk about Jordan Love, listen, they wanted him to play. They would have loved for him to play in 2022, but he didn't. They chose to go with Aaron Rodgers another year. But when they decided to move on from Aaron Rodgers and go to Jordan Love, it was instantaneously wins and instant, this guy got it. I'm talking about the season. I'm not talking about, he started off slow. Yeah, he did start off slow, but the second half of the season, that year, his first year, he picked it up. And then he parlayed it with another really good season the next following year. So it's not like it took this young man 4 or 5 years to show that he can play. They just chose to, let him they wanted him to sit 1 year. He ended up sitting the second year, and that benefited him somewhat because once he got underneath center, he was instant productivity. That's what I'm talking about. Listen, okay, you should have phrased it this way. They should have phrased it. If they would have phrased it this way, would fan bases look at it different, and even Adam? If they say, well, what if he's CJ Stroud? So what's the difference because both players have done essentially the same amount, but I know CJ Stroud has done it in 2 years and it's taken Love 4 years. But the moment that both of them became starters, it was instant productivity with both of them. So if I say, well, what if they draft C.J. Stroud? What if you're getting C.J. Stroud at number 1? Would you take that? I'm sure there will be no one would say no. But what is the difference with Love then? Because he was drafted 22nd, but they're both given the same production from as far as the numbers and what their team has done. Am I right or am I wrong?
So just to reset for those who want to know why we're bringing up Jordan Love in this conversation, The Ringer released its NFL draft guide, has the Titans taking Cam Ward, and they say as his comparison, he has shades of Jordan Love. I think you also hit on something else, Derek, and I've heard Jared talk about this as well. By the way, still in the company, coming up next. I think fans, they obviously, every team wants to have a Patrick Mahomes type,
Yes.
a Joe Burrow, a Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, like that. I mean, it's there's a reason why only so few quarterbacks like that exist, because it's hard to be that good. But I think what happens is sometimes people think, well, if we can't have that quarterback, well, doesn't matter. I mean, there's a perfectly solid second tier of quarterback out there. I think Jared Goff is a prime example of that. Someone who has really bloomed late in his career. I know he's in a great situation, but Jared Goff has helped the Lions get to where they are. I just think that there is this idea that the only way that you can win. I mean, I think Jalen Hurts is a perfect example. I mean, Jalen Hurts is not in that conversation with those quarterbacks. And I don't know where I would rank him among NFL starting quarterbacks. He would certainly be in the upper half. Would he be in the top third? I don't know. But he's great for that situation. He works with that team. So I think sometimes
Can the Titans pull off the trade for A.J. Brown to come back?
that certainly
and then
helps.
trade for Barkley?
But do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think that fans, if it's not an elite quarterback, what does it matter? But you need someone to play the position, and you don't want Will Levis to do it again.
And the reality is that there's a lot of levels of quarterback play that you can get. We saw there's a difference between average quarterback play and then the bottom of the heap, which is what they got from this year's quarterbacks.
Yeah, and
right.
And
Basically, the bottom three.
Yeah, and you can't survive if that's what you have. But and Jared had been saying that. I heard him talk about it last week. I believe he talked about it a little bit last week about. I think the fan base and listen, they can sort of the fan base. They are who they are, and they have every right to be passionate about their team because they've supported the Titans. But I think the fan base just all of a sudden is like, okay, everybody wants Patrick Mahomes, but you can't have Patrick Mahomes. If that's the case, every team would have a Patrick Mahomes, but it doesn't fall that way. So if you don't get a Patrick Mahomes, then you start naming off these quarterbacks. It's like, no, they're not good enough.
Right.
No,
everybody's not going to be good enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Nobody's going to be good enough. If that's the case, that's why I go to, if they are comparing Cam Ward to Love, then okay. If you're okay with that, Titans, I mean, I'm talking about the brass. If you're okay with that, then you draft him number 1. If you think he can be Love, that's half the battle because Jordan Love is a good quarterback. He may turn into an elite quarterback. But I know one thing he has done since he's been underneath center, he has produced. He's led his team to the playoffs. I know that's what he has done. So if what you get is Jordan Love, give him to me, and now I know I need to build around him as well.
Predators back in action tonight against the Vancouver Canucks. Willie, as you know, the Canucks are really the leading story in the NHL. If there are any soap opera writers out there searching for inspiration, just tune into this Vancouver Canucks season. To boil it down to its essence, their star forwards, Elias Pettersson and JT Miller, they don't like each other. And it's evident that they don't like each other. They have attempted to deny that something is happening between them, but everybody around them has said that something is wrong. The coach has said it. The captain has said it. The president of hockey operations has said it. There's no use denying that there is a rift between two star players. And Derek, you know full well, if your star players don't get along, it's hard to win, especially for a team in a market, Willie, as hockey obsessed and hockey crazed as Vancouver.
Yeah, it has created quite the conversation. And at the same time, too, the trade rumors alone of JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, the two superstars that aren't getting along, has been a story in and of itself. But then, as you mentioned, the layers around it of trying to deal with it in the meantime, they're still a really good team on paper, and they won the other night in St. Louis, and they're tracking to be right there on the edge of the playoffs while they go through all this. So I'm wondering how it's going to end with the trade rumors. It seems inevitable that they're going to trade one or the other, and Miller's probably the most likely to get traded, but he does have the no movement clause. So you have this subplot going on, and Rick Tocchet, who I think is an outstanding head coach, has had to balance all of this while they go out there and they're under the microscope. So this game is going to be broadcast all across Canada.
That's why it starts
tonight.
at 8,
That's why
by
it
the
starts
way.
at 8 o'clock. And so it'll be drama for sure. And we'll see if Nashville can get back to playing the way they've been playing, especially at home. They've been playing well at home now for a pretty extended period of time. They're 12-4-3 at home since starting 0-4, including 7-1-1 in the last 9. They've had a little break here to regroup. So I'm really curious what the Predators bring to the table. Can they bounce back from that really rough stretch they had just past the halfway point of the game on Saturday? They'd won 5 in a row. It's 2-2. They're pretty much carrying the play. I thought they were on verge on going on another good heater. Next thing you know, they're down 5-2. So how do they respond to that?
The Canucks' first visit and only visit to Nashville this season. So the first time the Canucks will be here since the playoff series last year. Derek, from a professional athlete standpoint, so I have to imagine in your illustrious career, now that you are a member of the Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame, it is confirmed.
Thank
You certainly have had to have teammates that you didn't like.
Of course.
That you just the sight of them just made you cringe,
I
like
ain't go that far,
like
no.
Liam Cohen saying Duval. But these two, JT Miller and Elias Pettersson, like it's clear, and like they're very different people.
Yes.
JT Miller is, he's brash. He's sort of an in-your-face kind of player. Elias Pettersson more subdued. Like Elias Pettersson, Derek, reminds me a lot of Roman Josi. Roman Josi, he's a quiet leader. He's not, not that.
And Pettersson, I would say, might even be more introverted.
Yes.
Than Josi.
So who would be?
Because Josi is more easygoing.
Yes.
But he's not an introvert, right?
Who would you say is the closest comparison among Predators players
to Pettersson?
To Miller.
To Miller, that's a good, because Miller is the boisterous. He's not afraid to start, being outwardly vocal at the good and the bad. And what I've heard it described this way: if things are going well, he's going to really help it go well, because he's going to be patting you on the back and say, "Great job, teammates, you're doing it. Let's go." But if things aren't going well, he's going to be the guy that's also maybe not helping. Teammates, what's going on over there? And Pettersson in particular, as a very important player who is more introverted, has not responded well to that kind of interaction, which is where I think the fault started. They've been playing together for a couple of years now.
Yes, it's been simmering under the surface, but it's bubbled up to the top. But how do you manage that as an athlete? Because you're like you said, you with the number of players you've played with, clear you were never going to like all of them.
Exactly.
But how do you put that aside to focus on one common goal?
Listen, it's all about respect. If you're showing me respect, I show you respect, and we'll move on. Listen, I've said I can work with just about anybody, as long as you respect me and I respect you, and we're both looking at it like we're both going for the same, the sort of the common big picture here, the common goal. If we're on the team, and that's the way it should be. So in this situation, if the big goal is to win the Stanley Cup, and we both want that, then how do we work? I don't need to like you. You don't need to like me, because there's 20-some guys, 30 guys in this locker room. Everybody don't like one another, but we respect one another. Just because you have a winning team, I'm gonna make this known to everybody. You may have a winning team, but everybody in the locker room may not like each other, but they respect one another. But I'm not saying like half the room don't like the other half. What I'm saying is there may be a few individuals in there that don't like one another, but they find a way to work with one another. And that's what it should be in this situation. Like, listen, I understand y'all two don't like each other, but y'all got to respect each other, because all of us are going in the right direction. So find a way to not just play with one another, but first and foremost respect one another. But if you can't get to that point, then man, oh man, you're gonna have
it's
to
reached.
do something.
It's reached a point of no return with those two. Somebody is
It would
ultimately
seem.
yes, and we'll see what happens tonight when the Predators host the Vancouver Canucks again. Puck drop at 8. Pregame at 7. Right here.
Not at 8:88.
No,
but just 8.
Just 8. Pregame at 7. A live edition of Predators Insiders with me and Robbie Stanley at 6. Right here at Barrel House. So we'll have your hockey covered tonight. Stillman and Company coming up next. 102.5, 106.3. The Game.
Be love, loving your people. Have a blessed, wonderful, and safe Wednesday. Peace out.